live tonight. If anybody's out there, holler if you hear me. Let me know if you're out here. I just got through seeing Newton, and he's still talking about the dance thing. I just didn't think it was that serious. It's something. I don't know. Just way people do that on stage. I mean, it's called chemistry. You're selling a certain type of thing to an audience. I didn't look at it as something that was uh, sexualized. I didn't look at it as something that was um I didn't look in more to it than it was. I just saw it as entertainers and a man and a woman chemistry on stage or in theater or performance is just that. It's an act, but it's not necessarily means anything else. So, you know, maybe I just didn't really, I don't know, must have not, did I miss something more to it? Because I didn't really think it was that big of a deal with him and Alicia Keys. I mean, they gone back. They did my boo back 20 years ago, but they've known each other since they was kids, they industry kids. So I didn't understand what the big to do is about the performance. Um, I don't know. See people lines and I what it is. Okay. You take me on your walk. Look at you crazy. So, but yeah, I was just tripping because Cam Newton brought this one up. He brought that up. I'm gonna say that Troy is a bigot, even though I'll say he does have some flashes of good old boy. He'll say some stuff that kind of even, but I do know. I will say this: the thought of a black dude and the way he's done it, I don't care. Cats be watching, and to see the Patrick Mahomes, and I can do videos about Patrick Mahomes every day. You know why? Because they've never had to experience this before. Never experienced before. It is an incredible sensation. They've never had a black quarterback that they've had to deal with on this level. Through Tiger Woods, you know, and they combed through Tiger. Um, but and Mahomes is the same way. I mean, a good natured cat. He wants to win. He's competitive. He's got it, but he's, you know, regular cat. Regular cat. I think his wife had a little too much to drink, though. I did see the celebrations, and I might touch about that in a video tomorrow about that whole city. But they are bothered by him. They are bothered by him because he's in uncharted territory. You know, Mahomes is scary to him because they've never had to deal with a black quarterback that was not only great, but he's also in conversation with this level. And there are tiers to this. It's not just like, okay, you're a regular season MVP, or you might have been a run up in the Super Bowl, or you made a championship game. No, we're talking about a cat 3 out of 4, 3 out of 4, and is dominant, especially in an era when you have Thai fluting greatness going. That's unheard of. It's one thing. It's not like the Brady Manning and maybe the occasional Roethlisberger situation, and then later Drew Brees down the line, or Marino Montana Fouts. I know you Anderson, he got MVP, and so did Boomer, but I wasn't. If you talk to most diehard Cincinnati Bengal fans or something, Joe Burrow is considered probably their best quarterback already. Boomer had MVP and Anderson. He just checks different boxes. That's all I'm trying to say. And I saw him different NFL, different NFL. So it makes a different situation. But Troy got every reason to be scared. He hated when Brady blew up, so you can imagine what he's like with Mahomes. Oh yeah, he wasn't giving it up to Brady because Aikman had to deal with post Steve Young, and then he had to deal with Brett Favre, which you know about that already. So, but there's always these, you know, it's different now because there are guys who come along and they win tons of rings, which was unheard of. It was unheard of for a quarterback. It really was because no one looked at Bradshaw's 4 and thought he was the GOAT. Okay. Even Bart Starr, most of them told you back in the day was Unitas. No one looked at Bob Greasy with 2. Starbuck was top 10. No, but the thing about Favre, right, is that if he beats Aikman and wins multiple rings, think about it. But he didn't. Dallas was his Achilles, as you know. He could beat Frisco, but he couldn't beat Dallas. He didn't beat him until they got Barry Switzer and all that mess. That's when he had success. Because Jason Garrett ran him off the field. Remember that holiday game back in the 90s? I remember. He could never beat Dallas until Dallas fell off. That took a minute. So, um, it's a lot of tension with this. A lot of tension. Tough. That's all I got to say. Tough. I saw Rod Parker trying to downplay Mahomes, and then I saw that on a Odd Couple. I was shaking my head. Yeah, I be watching these cats talk. I watch them talk. I did. Oh yeah, you're gonna like my video. It's coming up tonight, maybe in the morning, about Kyle Shanahan. I said they should fire him. They got rid of Steve Wilkes, and I'm like, what? It ain't Steve Wilkes' fault about not knowing about overtime rules. It ain't Steve Wilkes' fault that Brock Purdy didn't put touchdowns up. Yeah, he ain't the only one. Listen, I get the love affair with Aaron Rodgers, like the second coming of Elway with the arm and his mechanics and all that. But the guy's got one Super Bowl win, which is a big deal. But let me tell you something. I think they have more expectations for Aaron Rodgers than Joe Namath. Just saying. Now, I remember when you win a ring and you were the toast of the town. Eli Manning got 2 toasts, but this guy was supposed to be where somewhere between Mahomes and Brady, and it ain't happened. And I have to break their hearts, but Aaron Rodgers ain't won a ring since before there was a thing called Instagram and um, Snapchat. He won when there was Twitter was happening. He ain't been happening, and he ain't gonna be happening either because I don't think he's gonna play much good for the Jets. I don't think so. I could be wrong. Could be wrong. So, but anyway, yeah, they do love Aaron Rodgers. They slurp him like a big gulp. He's talented, but he ain't worth all that. Not that. Not worth that. Not at all. And I wish I knew what Aaron Rodgers possessed so much that they were like that with. I mean, yeah, he's got skill set, but then again, Mahomes didn't pass that up. So I mean, that's why it was scary. I'm telling you right now, a lot of them are scared because they have not see they can't condition themselves to think of a black quarterback. This that is on this level. It's unfathomable. If you've been alive of a certain age, to think in the last 20 years, the baddest golfer was black with Tiger Woods. Cause yeah, we gotta claim him. That's if he did say some mess like that, that's just a tacky turkey move. Now let me tell you this. Yeah, he might be the GOAT tight end and he might be tied with Gronk, but let me tell you like this. He ain't better at this position than Dan Marino was at his. Yeah, I said it. 3 rings or not, 4 trips. Yeah, I said it. He ain't better as a tight end than Dan Marino was as a quarterback. Now, I'm gonna put it like that. Marino was far more talented than Kelsey is at his position. So we're gonna play that game. You don't want me to come across the line and say, but if I'm gonna put it like that, and if I'm putting you in the pecking order, Marino got him beat without a ring. Runner up ring, participant ring. But I'll take his participant ring against Frisco before Kelsey's 3. Because Kelsey ain't there has not really been a tight end that I would sit there and tell you that they were that great that Dan Marino should be almost forgotten. Unless, see, if Tony Gonzalez had a won a ring or two, that's different because he was the most unique tight end I saw with his athleticism, but he wasn't the best. Aaron Hernandez, maybe if he'd have kept it going, who knows? Kellen Winslow Sr. was something else. But I ain't seen a tight end that I'm going to sit there and say, oh, you can pop off the Dan Marino. Heck no. You ain't in that club because you is, you know, yeah, that's true. And think about it. He played like 20, 80 years. Imagine if he'd have had legitimacy when he was there. We'd be looking at him in a different light because skill set wise, numbers wise, he you can make conversations with him. But like you said, he ain't have no bums. He had garbage. He had the weak garbage. He had some scrubs. Let's go look at his quarterbacks. Bring them names up. Bring them names up. You gonna tell me they bums? He's scrubs. He had some scrubs at QB. Bring them names up for me. I want you to name them names, cause I don't think he had bums. I think he had some scrubs. But please remind me, cause I remember when he was in Kansas City and Atlanta. Okay, Trent Green. Trent Green was I. He was I. Oh, Gerback. Gerback. He never was. He had a moment and a half, and I forgot about him. Elvis, a bum. He had a okay. What he had a couple okay moments, but to be a bum, I had to think he was something else, and I didn't think he was. Yeah, there you go. A guy who had one out of body year, and then what? I never was. Thank you. He had an outer body year, and I never was. Matt Cassaroni. That's what we call him, Matt Cassaroni. Buster. Elvis Gerback was a buster. Trent Green was a good analyst. He was kind of like a broke pre Tony Romo good analyst. Commentary. He was alright. Now, because Casserole, Matt Casserole had the better run of the three that won you in New England. Okay, Matty Ice, league MVP. You got me. That's a bum. Okay, that's the first bum you mentioned. The other turkeys, Trent Green was alright, serviceable. Gerback, he faded. So that was a never was. And Casserone, Matt Tuna Casserole, that's what we call him, Matt Casserole. He was a league MVP. He got to a Super Bowl. And he was held to a certain tier. He was better than them other cats put together almost. Oh, really? Matty Ice had reputation. Matt Castle had 1 year that I remember, and then he disappeared like Casper. Gerback, unless you were a football fan, went Frisco, and you remember how T.O. felt about him. And Trent Green was all right. He was all right. Them three ain't seeing no Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan got to a Super Bowl. They choked it and bad play calling, and he was a league MVP, I believe. So I no, yeah, yeah, he should have been better than he was. That's bum. Because if you get to a Super Bowl, you're 28-3 lead over New England, Belichick and Brady, and you don't win, and you have Julio Jones, and you don't really have you, he's a bum. Yeah, I see it. Yeah, I see it. Because he's the only one of them that can qualify as a bum. The other cats, I ain't had no expectations for. I really didn't. And you didn't. No, most people didn't either. No one talks about Matt Casserole, and Gerback and Trent Green. No, no, no. Mm-mm, mm. Them three cats combined ain't even got. I don't even know if they combined were as good as Tony Romo. Well, I'll say they weren't even as good as Danny White. Them three, because Danny White went to NFC Championship games 3 times. Casserole, and he had that 1 year with New England. They didn't even make the playoffs that year, and he was 11-5. And after that, he was on a milk carton. And Gerback and Trent Green. But yeah, I said about Matt Ryan because he did. He had that moment. See, if a cat's got moments, then there's some expectations. And cats ain't got no moment. He was because he went to 3 straight NFC Championship games. He could punt, and he should have had a little bit more going when he had Drew Pearson, Tony Hill, and Dorsett. He should have been a little bit better than he was. He should have been, even though he threw one of the most softest balls ever, but he should have been more than he was. He did get a ring as a punter with Dallas in '77, but I don't know that beady eye. You know, he was cross-eyed or not. I don't know what he was doing, but I remember him and Gary Hokelboom. You can look it up. 4 years ago, were battling. Hokelboom threw better passes. He had more juice in his arm, and him and White were battling in Dallas, and it was hilarious. But I'm gonna tell you, it was the '85 Bears. They knocked both them turkeys cold out. God, they both got thumped by that 46 defense. They got thumped in Dallas too. I used to go to school with a girl that liked Danny White. Don't ask me why. And we used to cringe about Danny White because he threw the most soft lollipop passes. Okay, I'm gonna answer that the best way I can. I don't think it make him look desperate. I'm gonna tell you why. Because Braun put it out there. Braun put it out there to Draymond. See, it looks one way to you, but Braun actually been hanging out. They went to France together. Remember last summer? They buddies. The court. And how's it look desperate when Clay is broke down? Draymond is a reckless meathead. There's nothing there. And what else he got? What else he got? He should want somebody because Wiggins is what do they got? And then Kalinga's coming on, but what do they got? The fact that that man's got that team over 500, Curry should get some MVP consideration for that. That's a lottery and a half scratch team if he get hurt tomorrow. They're cooked. They're cooked. So I would be kind of desperate if I'm him. I would be. Yeah, he was blessed with good receivers, and also I think he was married to Tom Landry's daughter. It was something that went on, but he wasn't worthy of being coming behind Starbuck. He did do good in the regular season. He had some moments, but he couldn't come clutch. He just wasn't clutch because they lost 3 straight times. Boy, I'm gonna tell you something. If you're a Cowboy fan, Danny White right now looks like gold compared to Dak Prescott. Big difference when you can be knocking at the door and then the door slammed you in your face before you have a chance to put your key in. Big difference. I think Curry and Braun would have been interesting about 4 or 5 years ago. I wouldn't want to see it now. They both passed the pull date. I'm not watching that mess. I have no interest. Because for me, it's more about the younger guys. I want to see Anthony Edwards, what he does, and maybe Embiid. I don't want to see them guys. It's the last hurrah, and it's the end. But I really don't have no interest to see it. Mm-mm. I want to see somebody. I want to see the Anthony Edwards of the world doing it. I want to see Jason Tatum should have his chance. Harber, Harbor for the Pacers should be in there. There should be more of the younger cats. So I'm kind of offended if you must know. I really don't want to see. I don't understand what Embiid, but I don't want to see the cats that, like Curry and Durant and LeBron and Kawhi. I don't want to see that. They had their chances with this. This is a new era. I like Maxi too. He just ain't being utilized the right way. Because I really believe you can get even more out of him. I know you can. And I liked your proposal too. Him with Booker would be sick. He would be sick there. Him and Bradley Beal and Book would be a sick threesome. I like that. I ain't arguing with you. That ain't no hot take. Who told you I was in love with Jason Tatum? The broke Junior Whopper Steph Curry. Who told you? Tatum is overrated, but he's the biggest American young player that they're pushing. When I say that, think about it. Because once we get past him, Jokic, Embiid, Luca, and now SGA, once we get past the Euro cats, right? The next cat that they be slurping is Tatum. Tatum is getting this Aaron Rodgers love by the NBA. And he got in the one finals and he stunk it up. Curry outplayed him. But they got him in these commercials with LeBron. He's always I like Tatum as a dude. Like the dude is cool and he gives back to community, but he ain't the finisher. You know. Actually, when I think about Jason Tatum, when I say he's a junior whopper Curry, that's like how I look at Usher and Michael Jackson. Tatum is like the Usher basketball. He's got it, but he ain't got it. And until he gets it, yeah. Oh, Miami's starting to cook too. They won last night. They beat Philly. I know MB wasn't there, but they started. He can beat them because it's up here. Tatum doesn't have that skill set for what his size. He can shoot, good movement, draw some, but it ain't a finisher. Case in point, when they lost that game to the Lakers 2 weeks ago, that's embarrassing. That's why I don't understand why Charles Barkley be slurping them like, oh, what they gonna do? They gonna get their butt beat again. They gonna get their butt sent home like they usually do. I don't care who's coaching Boston because they don't have that dude. They don't have that dude. Checking my money. They don't have that dude. And unless you got that dude, him and Brown don't work. Hartford, Zangas. I like White all right, but they just don't have that dude. They're not that team. So, because until they get that, because they don't have no interior, they don't have what we call an interior game, and they don't have a real point guard. And Drew Holiday right now is old. He's there for defense, but he really ain't gonna set them up. They don't do a setup. They don't. Tatum be running the top. He playing. He runs top the key. Brown ain't got no handles. He lucky he ain't playing 25 years ago. He'd be stripped. He'd be stripped search. He think he was being frisked because he can strip him. He ain't got no handles. And they don't really play conventional ball. They shoot quick, back taps, long rebounds. You know, they happen to have guys who can get shots off, and they happen to rotate him. They'll beat a lot of teams, but they're not a contending team. They're a pretender. You know, I'm telling you right now, Larry Bird walked through that door, Paul Pierce walked through that door, and can suit up for them for the next 4 or 5 years. I'd give them 2 or 3 rings. But unless that happens, they gonna be fool's gold. That's what they are. They gonna get 3 2 3 rounds to eat. That's kind of understandable because if you see hear him, he always talks. He's still dragging and he's still in denial. He won't be Mexican. He want. I did a video, but I think I think I touched about it. Tyrese is one of those guys that he's so frustrated, you know, and I don't know what to tell the brother, but he does stuff like that to himself all the time. Some people don't get over their ex. That's common. Usually women do that sort of thing, but there's some guys out there who are like that. They do a compare and contrast. He realizes he wrecked a good thing. So he buck dancing now because he won't be Mexican, and he definitely simp. So you can buck and simp. He checks all the boxes. And he's also musically as an artist. If you ask me, I never was because he never fully got his voice straight. He could sing. Fast and Furious Part 98. I guess if but he does. You know, I remember when he was in the My Way video with Usher, and I'm like, yeah, because you're not really a lead. You got a better voice than Usher, but you ain't got nothing to do with it. And then he tried to be a rapper, Black Tay Tay, Tie Tie. I remember that mess. You know, he's got what we call the jack of all trades, but he tried too hard, and people almost forgetting why they even messed with him in the first place. So I'm not surprised. Yeah, he stays simping. And like I always tell anybody, I don't care who you with, because your skin is your uniform and love yourself. But he definitely got some color issues with his situation. That's a fact. That's definitely a fact. I sense that. So I don't really mess with Tyrese. I did like Sweet Lady, and I remember when he first came up with the Coca-Cola commercials. I go back to him back then. I remember Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis got him on, and he been around. This cat been around almost 30 years, but I don't see no evolution at all. Do tell me how. If you're talking about what happened with the transition son daughter thing, but in what other regards though? Because he got ownership with Utah. That's token, but still. Um, Jersey retired. Get a statue in Miami. If you're talking about him, and a lot of them do that. I hate to say it. You feel that way about Magic, Isaiah Thomas. They all got. There's always something. And if it's not that agenda, is what happened with Jordan's son and Scottie Pippen's ex. They not they don't really keep their business out of the mix. You know. He did get his statue in the Utah thing, but his personal life is kind of and let me tell you, I know some people are gonna say, "Well, you're a D Wade fan," and you're like, I don't really get into folks' PR too much, personal lives, unless of course something really comes across my mental desk that I feel I got to comment on. Because in his case, with the even though that was a bit young, the son daughter situation with that thing, but Magic Johnson's situation, Isaiah, there's quite a few. There's somebody else that's going through it too in the NBA. I can't think right now. I think in time, but that's a lot of ego involved. If you're a Heat fan, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a casual Heat fan or you really weren't, it's not as simple as that. I'm sure Pat Riley will, they will, but it's begrudging. He said some stuff this year that Miami didn't make or break him. And even Shannon Sharp broke out of his usual King James holding holding his hand across his chest for him and said, "Look, if you don't play for Miami, we're not having a discussion about your greatness." So it's a touchy subject. In case you remember, and I did a video about it because Miami beat them. That's when he went to South Beach, and Miami beat him the second time in L.A. But and he cried about that foul, which could have gone either way. But anyway, um, does he deserve one? Yeah. But will that take time? Yeah. Did he still got some bitterness towards Miami? Yeah. Pat Riley ain't gonna back down. You know, I think the way he left, but I also think the way he's still taking some shots because he doesn't realize he left Miami. He owes them a ring, okay, and he acts like he. Let me look at his career post Miami. Four straight chip runs with Cleveland, one ring. One finals with the Lakers, one ring. So 2-5. Let me get this right. He lost three in Cleveland. He won one in LA. Excuse me. Excuse me. So his best ratio was in Miami. The best version of him was in Miami. So I would say yeah, but there's a lot of tension there. So nobody's gonna budge. So I'm not arguing with you, but there's a lot of tension there. If you're a Heat fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, they're different ones. I mean, obviously the finals against Dallas, those games, the games against Detroit, actually game five against Detroit, um, 2005, because he got off from that Saturday night. He got off. He was balling. Um, his game against the Pacers, no, it wasn't the Pacers. It was the what's it, Charlotte? It was the first round when him and Lamar were on teammates, 2004, before the trade. And he had some big games against that. And then, of course, he 2009 had a lot of games I like. He had a lot of games I like. You know, anywhere with when you say Wade's best games for me, there were arguments from 2004 to about 2009. Those were his prime peak. And he had in the him and LeBron era, he had a couple things that I like, but um, it's regular season and postseason. If I'm honest, if I'm honest, he had some. He had a mix that I like on both sides. That game against Golden State actually was it that last year and he hit that game winning shot because Clay jumped right by him and he hit the game winner. That was one of the best games too. Because actually he still like he could still go. That's what I liked about it. That game against Golden State, he hit that dagger at the end and he jumped on the scores table. He actually towards the end of his career was getting that outside shot going. My favorite Kobe regular season and games. I would tell you, I think the finals against Pacers on the road, that was one of them that was a mark for me that he really, and of course, the flush against Steve Nash, that was cold. Uh, Regular season games, probably, actually, ironically, he hit that game winner against D Wade. That was a big statement because they were like battling. And I thought that was something else. Um, I liked his games against the Knicks, especially when he go to New York, the flush. Um, he had most memorable games against Phoenix, though. I'm just trying to think. Hmm. So that probably comes out. For me, if I go back 21 years ago, when he went on that tear, and he went on that 40-point tear, he was coming in. He was starting to come in. So I seen different sides of him. So, and I was impressed with how he got his shot going. He got his strength going. Because I remember the Utah series with the air balls. I remember that was impressive because he set out the fourth quarter. I forgot. Well, okay, I'll do you one better since you mentioned Dallas. The game where they were down by 25 and he led the charge back and he got off. That one's even more impressive than the 62. The 62 was impressive because of what he scored and he set the fourth quarter out. But the fact that he came back, they were down by 25 and had Cuban looking all disjointed and sad, like a lost puppy, was, yeah. He had some great games against Dallas. So those two come to mind. They come to mind. That was a good call there. I mean, obviously someone's gonna say the Toronto game, but you can say the 81 because they needed him to be, and he stepped up big. He stepped up big. So that's an obvious dub. But yeah, I remember that one too. I remember the Portland series. He hit a big game winner too. He took the last shot. He came up big. He used to break their hearts in the Rose Garden too. So you can't go wrong with that. But I think I probably had more regular season games with him. There's some truth to that, but then I can make the case against Dallas too, because I mean, yeah, because they were the Pacific Division rivals. I can see where you're going with that, but I could also say Dallas was in that mix too because that 25-point come from behind when he went off. Uh, that was a pretty big game. But yeah, I'll give you that. I'm not gonna argue that. Even though the Jordan thing with Cleveland was a lot more personal. Well, Kobe's passed to Shaq and that because with Scotty and that. That was nice. That was nice. You got a good point about Portland because there were some there, you know, mainly because of the iconic the pass to Shaq, and that pretty much destroyed Scotty, Rick Alderman, and they run. Just Jordan shot, Shaq shot the shot with the dunk. So yeah, he got down on MSG. So oh, it wasn't nice. It was incredible because they had to have it. They really had to have it. He had to play at an incredible level, and he did. He played within the team. See, a lot of times with me and Kobe, sometimes he overshot the ball too much or he doing too much. I can't even argue against what he did in MSG because they needed all that, and he delivered. He delivered. So that was a great game for him. He played his tail off that game. He was great. Yeah, he was real solid. 3-point shooting. He didn't rush stuff. He was authentic. And that's one of the problems I had with him sometimes, because sometimes he would just be trying to like stat pad and just jack shots up and fade away all that. He played within the concept. That's what made it great. That's one of the reasons why I'm kind of hard on him. I'm not like a lot of people, when I get asked why he ain't in my top 10, because he had some what I call airhead games, and he had some games where he was incredible. Now, that doesn't mean he couldn't borderline in my top 10 or be inch, because I do come close with him, but I can't rank him higher because he had a lot of frustrating things too. And I was, very aware of him with him and Shaq together, very aware. And he had some moments where he pouted and mounted. He downplayed. Oh, where do I start? I mean, on Orlando when he broke the rim against the Nets was incredible. And his running, um, he he had a. I remember against the Knicks against you, and he came up big. He had when he started to bop and shake and move. He had some big games. I remember with that. Um, a lot of Laker big games. I mean, of course, um, when he dunked on Chris Dudley, and when he his games against Sacramento, he just was dunking on Robinson and dunking when he banged. I mean, there was some lot of games with those guys against the Spurs. He came up big. Okay, well, nobody said who he played against. And before anybody try to downgrade Shaq, did he not come up big against Duncan and Robinson? Not too many people can do that. Because I'm gonna tell you something. Were it not for Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan would be getting that higher rank. Anybody want to debate me? Feel free. That's my hot take. If it wasn't for Shaq, Duncan would be getting a higher ranking. Yeah, I mean, and that's Tim Duncan. Okay, I hold Duncan in high regard. I do. But Shaq was the only one who could do that to him. The only one. So, um, he had some big games in Miami. He had he came up against Detroit. Um, there's a few games that come to mind. Obviously, his first trip back to LA and the Miami won. But if you wanted to, you could call him the GOAT now. Why 5-1 would make him the GOAT? See, he got as many rings as Kobe and Magic, more than Bird. I mean, and Shaq too. But why can't 5-1 make him the GOAT? Why can't he be considered a GOAT now? People can't give me an honest question why, because he was fundamental. He got a lot of points. He was a big postseason player. The only thing that they got catch up with Duncan is because he was low key. If that's your criteria, but he still got 5 rings and he went to 6 finals. I mean, back to back does carry weight. Okay, I'll say this. Obviously, if Mahomes three-peats, he's the GOAT. I already said that. I already think he can be considered the GOAT now. But if he three-peats, it'd be hard not to argue. But um, it's tough. It's tough. But does that discredit his 5 rings? Does that discredit his dominance? I mean, they were either three-peated in baseball. No one calls him the greatest. I do think he's one of the 5 greatest Yankees, though. You know, but I mean, and it's different sports and different rules. But it all depends on what your standards are. But I do hold Duncan in high regards. I think you can make the case for him. You know, I think you really can. He was fundamentally incredible. And I tell anybody, Shaq aside, Duncan was my next favorite player in the last 20 years ago. 20 years ago, talking because I had respected him a whole lot. People don't realize how stinky fundamental the cat was. The kissers off the glass like Casey Jones, his defense, outside shots, passing game, fundamentally tuned in a lot of ways. But Robinson did help him out on defense. Don't let's not act like Dave wasn't important on his defense because Dave defense was low key. Dave low key showed him a few tricks too. Dave was a bad boy on defense. They were great for each other in different ways. I mean, Duncan had the upside, but don't get it twisted. David had his place because Dave Robinson is one of the 10 greatest centers ever. And had he had a little bit more success and his body didn't give out and played in time, he would be even higher. Because athleticism wise, he was a freak, and he could score. He won a scoring title. You know, he had to score 73 points to pass Shaq 1 year, and that's still impressive. I don't care what nobody says. League MVP. Robinson was a bad dude. Sometimes a little soft, but I can't take nothing from him. No, can't take nothing from him. Great together. The against the Knicks, they body up, but yeah, Robinson is Oakley in this era with toughness. Yeah, Yeah, strange as that sounds to say. I mean, I usually don't peanut butter and jelly all put together, but yeah, well, I'll tell you this. He's everything that Draymond Green will never be. Better offensive IQ, better understanding of sense. You put David Robinson with Victor Wemby right now, and they're a playoff team. I'll tell you that now, right now, mentally, because David low key did they fed off of him. So, but I never thought of David Robinson and Charles Oakley in the same sentence. That's hilarious to me. And you got that's a good one. That's almost like the Usher glove. That's funny. I don't quite put them in the same sentence. Black men with mustaches, and that's about it. But toughness in the same, I don't. So Hakeem was lucky Jordan left. Hot take. You don't think Hakeem could beat Jordan? You don't think the Rockets could with Hakeem? He had success against him in the regular season. I don't know about the postseason. Me and Elijah one are an interesting situation. I loved his game, his footwork. I don't feel he was better than no Shaquille O'Neal. I don't feel he merits the top four guys. Wilt Chamberlain's book, if you ever read it or heard about it, Who's Running the Asylum, peep that book out. He talks about Elijah one. He says he didn't think he was mentally tough. His skill set is great. His footwork was great. And I'm making no excuses for Shaq. But there wasn't a lot of big disparity. It wasn't like Hakeem scored 35 points to Shaq's 25. He just was more seasoned and he had a little bit more going for him. It wasn't like it, and they did use a three-headed monster against Shaq, which was, but it was a coaching, different things. But Elijah one was lucky that he won because he had Sam Cassell, Mary Kenny Smith hit shots in the perimeter, and Rudy Tom Johnson had bounced out with Vernon Maxwell. They had and they got Clyde. That's what the luck was. He was a very talented, skilled player. Skill wise, Hakeem is one of the most skilled I ever seen. But when we put it together mentally, we put it all together. Um, we'll never know. But the only problem I have with the Hakeem situation is that somehow Hakeem gets elevated over Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah beat Jordan when Jordan was Jordan coming on. And Elijah got it when Jordan left. So if you're using that as your logic, I concur. Because Isaiah actually did it in live stream. Elijah one didn't. So if you're using that as your, if that's your base, you got a strong take. If that's your take, because I'll always rings are rings, but a lot, but the way Isaiah did it, there was no questions. Hakeem's, he did, he did, and see, you know, other channels, people, it's fashionable. I mean, Zeke brings some pettiness on himself, but he doesn't get his love. He doesn't get his just due. And I have a problem with that. I love this game. I'm a Zeke fan. Steve Nash gave it up to Zeke. And I'm one of the few people on the planet that's going to tell you all day that Zeke over Allen Iverson all day and twice on Sunday, the rest of the week. Because he held back his game. He could do a lot more. He could score. He led his team. And it wasn't like that's some top tier team that everybody was so great. Joe Dumars was a very good player. He had a nice size team and what have you. But they weren't what we call. He had Ryman when Ryman was a puppy. Okay, I did a video about Dr. J. It's coming out. So be on the lookout. Should be on a few hours. I talked about what him and Shaq talked about. And in the video that I'm doing, I should get a response from you tomorrow because it'll be coming out. Him and Shaq were talking about, he talked about when he retired in 87, ESPN wasn't quite ESPN. So NBC had the rights to the NBA. So they started in 92. And he said the powers that be, that's what Dr. J said, the powers that be didn't want anything from the past. They only wanted when Shaq got there. And so the dude that was interviewing, it's on the if you type in Dr. J Shaq interview, you'll see the dude's reaction because he was like, okay. Only reason why I would say that's because Grant Hill looked like he had a little bit more overall game. He did look like he was going to be something before he got hurt, but he wasn't mentally as tough as Jordan. I think that, pardon me, I think that because there's always this sense that don't lump me with somebody. Let me give you an example of that. Richard Pryor hated it when Eddie Murphy was lumped with him because he paved the way for him. But he looked at him as still the competition because ego, and you got to be away from it. I think it's because Jordan benefited a lot from what Dr. J couldn't. And I'm gonna tell you, let me explain this. I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not saying it wasn't, but I'll say this. You gotta remember Dr. J came from the ABA with that afro and that jewelry, and they needed him to sell their product. Even though they said the NBA was too black and it's too much cocaine and all that. He did not reap the benefits the same as Jordan did. He had to come in as a winner, be in the finals, and then they won, and he was older. Okay, he did his. The Fish Saved Pittsburgh was his Space Jam. He did not have the same, and it does cause bitterness because when he got in, he was older and he was more cosmopolitan, whereas Jordan came in raw, and they anointed, and then he benefited from David Stern with the marketing. The Chuck Taylor conference with Dr. J went through, they weren't giving brothers that, unless you were OJ. And OJ didn't have no shoe deal. Wasn't like that. There's gonna cause some resentment and some tension because somebody else comes along who it feels like they're getting all the reaping the benefits that you bestowed upon. So I can understand his hostility. One thing about it is no one ever really talks about that. They pick on Isaiah for feeling that way about Jordan. They don't talk about Dr. J. Well, Dr. J's held in a different regard too, but still, ego is ego. And they basically told a black player back then, you can't fly in the air and win chips. You can't score all them points and win. So Jordan, things worked out for him. I watched it. It's back in '85. He was blinging, and they froze him out. They thought he was too arrogant. They thought he was a country bammer, and they thought how dare he come out? Because he guys used to have standards back then. Now, what you call a freeze out, they was like, look at here, bro, you're too big for your britches. They would never do that today. Never do that today. That was a different day and time. The money was different too. The Slurp Fest was different. You didn't have they was on CBS, and it was in the middle of the afternoon. Lily White, Brett Musburger, um, I can't think of this cat's name. He had a mustache. He was John something. He was used to be on Entertainment Tonight too. So I remember all that. And anyway, that was a different day and time. You can't compare the two. Egos were always involved, but that was when, you know, different day and time. Different day and time. I understand why they did what they did because they thought he was being brash and arrogant, and he was. He was feeling himself, but he also knew that, and they probably felt he was David Stern's boy. They thought, oh yeah, he's the money boy, and he was playing the game. And there are things about Jordan that definitely turn me off, personal side. always said that for my money, like the way I like the basketball, the way I like it, I took Magic and Bird over him too, personally. Personally, I do think he benefited from the league getting older and it watering down. I do. I never said he wasn't a great talent, and I never said that he doesn't deserve his place. Best two guard I've seen in my lifetime. All that, but I don't think that he ain't worth without criticism, without being dissed either. Because I think that a lot of stuff did work in his favor. I know it did because I watched it. When you lived it and you seen some stuff, you seen some things. They make these guys how they want them to be. They do the same thing with LeBron. Bird games. Oh God, where do I start? Um, I'd say the finals against the Lakers. I want to say he had a very memorable game in '84. He matched what they were doing. I want to say it was a game four or something. He came up big in the finals. His games against Clyde Drexler or against Dominique Wilkins were epic. Big time scoring against them guys, especially Neat. But that game he shot left handed again. They were in Hartford, Connecticut. I remember that one game he scored like 50, 60 points. He was shot the ball over the rim. It was crazy. Um, I'm trying to think what other. I mean, there was a lot of them. Yeah, he got off against Clyde. But the game against him and Neek was legendary. The game against Neek was legendary. That was like he put on the clinic. He did that fadeaway. He came up big in Boston Garden. I mean, every time he played in the Garden, it always seemed like he was gonna come up big. He just had that it about him. He exhibit that. Um, those stand those stand out the most of the time. He had some big games against Philly. I still remember the game when Dr. J was trying to choke his neck. Bird was lighting that butt up though. Bird was lighting that butt up. He those yeah, those what comes to mind. Cause they had a real rivalry with Philly. Real rivalry. He had a couple with Detroit too. I mean, obviously the Steel, but I remember he got into it some fisticuffs. Um, Barkley games were always gonna probably be when he was in Philly because he did his coast to coast thing. I mean, like obviously the game against the Spurs when he hit that top of the key against Dave Robinson in '93, but his his best ball was in Philly. He'll tell you that. His Sixers era was his prime peak. That's when you could make the case he was top four, 3 or 4 in the league. Um, it's kind of hard to think. I think he had this one monstrous game against Atlanta, but that's been a long time ago. I got to, the thinking cap on there. But I'm just gonna tell you, his best ball. That's what a round mound. That's what he got down. I could make the case in the Olympics in '92 because to me he was the best player on the floor. And I think that when you think about it, he was a blueprint for what Stern and now Adam Silver won with the NBA with you know, because he was able to bulldoze, use his body, post up, you know, very effectively. He was he was definitely something else back then. You know, he had some big games against Seattle too when he was with Phoenix, but it was something about him in Philly. That's what his MVP really was. It depends on what they're happy and smile goofy about though. If we're talking like Tim Scott, if Tim Scott your example, I'll give you that. If it's a politician or entertainment, yeah. But it depends on what context we're talking about, you know. Because I gotta have a like if we're talking Tim Scottish type of thing or Terry Crews type. And you giving me a good example. I can answer that. far as that go. I think they like them when they smile and happy because they don't have to be asking about racism or certain things. I think in that context, yeah. You talking about old boy from Australia? That's what you talking about. Yeah, and I feel bad for his daughter too, because his his daughter, her daddy put his hand in there, and I was having Richard Pryor for let's go put our hands in the alligator. Let's just go touch the animal, and they tell you, Steve, what's his last name? Steve, he did that in Australia. I never forgot that. Leave them alligators alone. Leave them animals alone. Stop going to the zoo and patting them. So, oh, let's just go over there and touch them up. And then they slap you. I mean, come on now. There's truth to that. A lot. That is true. I didn't see nobody black put their hands on no alligator or touch no bear. But you definitely see, yeah, yeah. Well, treat them more like family. I mean, black folks do it too, but it is a difference about how it gets like this. So, mhm. But Barkley had, like I said, he did his he did his real damage when he was with Philly. That's how you really. That's how I would be honest with you. His Philadelphia era was the best one. You know, he had some great moments in Phoenix, but his best day, his real like when you going to talk about the real Barkley, Philly. Yeah, he could get his number retired in Phoenix. I wouldn't have no problem with that. But Philly was the best of him. That was great. I remember it. And George Carl was very upset, but he had home cooking. That whole time was wild, though. I mean, when he went to the finals, that whole time was wild. He got the MVP, and he played great there. But he didn't have the same juice that he had in Philly. That's all I'm trying to say. That Barkley from 85 to about 89, 90 would have beaten Seattle in 5 games by itself. So because of his Hall of Fame career and his TV and his iconic, yeah, one of the few people that you know, though he didn't win, he's actually bigger, and because of the way he carries himself. But I'm still kind of split with him. You know, I don't feel about him like I once did because he didn't bucked and shuffled a lot. But I can't argue about him being a made man because without him on TNT, there is no TNT. And he was one of the first guys that played the game that talked so much trash but had such a compelling way of putting it that they couldn't help but keep him on. He's the reason for Shannon Sharp. But he sucks with Gail King on the other shows, and he's not articulate. But he's articulate in a down to earth way that he connected the casual fan, and he had a way of presenting himself, the laughs and the way he presented himself. So it's a catch 22 with Barkley. It's kind of complex, but he was the first one that I saw as an athlete turn to commentating that he connected because he made it simplified for the average fan, if that makes any sense. he's pretty unique that way. Against the Lakers with that the sort of 83 with that dunk when he went coast to coast and Michael Cooper got out the way, that was incredible. I want to say the game, one of the games against Portland and Philly when he dunked on Bill Walton, that was incredible. His athleticism. Um, when he won against the Lakers, game four, he had a breakaway. I was so glad for him. And if we can go back to them old Nets games when he was in the ABA, because you know it's hard to say, but he had some big games, some big championship games. Um, Jordan games. Oh God, where do we start? I mean, the game against Boston in the Garden when he's 63 was incredible. That's postseason because that was his regular season stuff was great, but that postseason against Bird to do that in '86, that display was mind blowing at that time. 69 against Cleveland was incredible. Portland finals game, hit all them threes was incredible. His series against Phoenix was incredible. If you want to be honest, he came up big. He was levitating. He was, you know, to me, some might say the flu game. Jason Kidd, my favorite games, if you must know. Okay, let me deal with Jason Kidd first. Kidd, mainly when he's with the Nets, because that's where he really hit his peak in his prime. Um, Came big against Boston. I like the way he facilitated. He had Kerry Kittles. He had, he had Kmart looking good. He had all them cats looking good. Richard Jefferson looked good. Um, I thought that's where I got the prime peak of him, if you want me to be honest with you. Because his early career at Phoenix and Dallas, he had some moments, but it's when he got to the Nets. That's where Kidd became Kidd. Okay. And he came up big in the finals against Miami. He facilitated the ball. To me, he was the dude that he could have played for both teams, like the way he was handling the rock. He was older, but he was a strong facilitator for Dirk. So I had that's where his maturation came to me. Steph. Well, there's so many. I mean, the Madison Square Garden 54-point game was one of them that stood out to me. Um, Boston in the finals was incredible. How he finished that up, put him to sleep, incredible. Um, he he had a couple of games against Cleveland in the finals that I liked a lot that Steph did. Not the first time, the first year with Dave Durant. That's where he really got off. He started coming because the season of him got better. Um, Big games against OKC, hit some big shots. That one game when he hit that shot before regulation, I mean, he was, yeah. And see, in 2016, he couldn't do no wrong. I mean, he was on the 2015, 2016 when they uh, won the 73. I mean, he was scary. He was scary. You know, came up big the other night against Phoenix, hit that big shot. I mean, the thing about him is I can go in different eras. Yeah, he was. He was. He was. He was poetic. And that's why his legacy merits top 10 because the way he played that year, I mean, that was amazing. And he went like crazy. LeBron, I like some of the early Cleveland era. I think against Detroit, you got to give mention that one. The way he came up big and they beat them to go to the finals, hit some big shots. But I think in Miami, especially against Boston, the playoffs, he came up big. Um, Game 7 big against the Spurs when he won against OKC. And I say for with Cleveland against Golden State in 2016, he played incredible. You know, To me, his best prime peak, if I can say that, for LeBron from the best of him, the best of him, 2011 to about 2016. So I'd say that was his when where he really. I'm talking about where he was playing at a level where he was going to be a championship or bust, and he was playing a hell of Kareem games against the Celtics in '85 and the he came up so big. He redeemed himself against. Um, he had a series against Moses Malone. I said '82. He came up big. He got bumped. He always had those kind of like knockdown. Then he came back and he figured it out kind of situations. But to me, his best when they beat Boston '85, he was on a high horse. He came up huge because Robert Parrish was challenging him as the new kid on the block. He had a big game against Patrick Ewing too, and against Ralph Sampson. And I watched him just pretty much tear cats up. He was a big event, and he had some big moments against a lot of folks. In fact, the '80s series, the one Magic got the Finals MVP. Kareem was gonna win that before he got hurt for that game six because he played at a high level, but Magic had that 42-7, and had that big game, and that's the only reason why they gave it to him. But Kareem was balling. Garnett. He had some big games in Minnesota. I think he had some games in there that were in Minnesota. To me, his peak and his prime was actually his MVP year. He got in 2004, and that's where he became better season player. 0204. Um, and for Boston in '08 when they won the finals, he came up big in Game Six. He balled. He balled. So with me and him, it's more about as he got older, especially in that window. I'd say 2002 to about 2008. That was the best of Garnett because he had growing pains his early years. Well, it was a loss against Cleveland in '89, but it was the ground causing the fumble. But that's where he started off looking great. He had that game against San Francisco in '92. There was no punts in that game. Him and Steve Young put on a clinic in Frisco. He balled that game. Kelly against the Raiders playoffs. He had. I'd say obviously I'd say 90 through 93. That was his prime peak with the Bills. He had some big games, games against the Rams too. Okay, one at a time. OJ, well, I remember that does kind of predate me a bit because I was real too young with that, but I was what I did go back watch the Detroit game on Thanksgiving '76 where he broke the record at the time. He was running incredible, and then of course against the Jets when he broke the 2000 incredible run and some games against New England. Um, those games from '73 when he had the 2,000 yards was incredible. He had incredible seasons. He had incredible runs those games against Cincinnati too. So I would say those were the ones that stood out. His prime peak window, I want to say 72 through '76, the best, and he was on fire in some of them games and years. And of course, his college too. I mean, almost all the SC games. So he's a rarity because you can debate his college and his pro career. He was like Kareem in that regard. Mhm. Just didn't have the because they didn't have the championship pedigree in Buffalo. That's all. Brady, I think to be honest with you, like I can admire his early part of his career, but let me not even front when he had Randy Moss, the games against Dallas. I mean, he was putting up video game scores. A game against Pittsburgh, he was talking trash to the free safety because he went down there and bust him deep and said, "Y'all ain't gonna stop this." His games against Ray Lewis and the Ravens, those were his character games, especially when he won. Those were the games to win or lose against them. Those were the ones. Those were the ones. The Super Bowl against Seattle, incredible. He came back. He played great in the second half, made adjustments, and of course against Atlanta. So those are the ones that, for me, that's where his legacy more so. Jerry Rice against Dallas. I remember there was a game. I want to say was it was 99. I forgot. Did the dip, the 7 yard hitch, and took off. Rice against them. Rice against the Raiders when he broke the record. Deep passes, good catches. Super Bowl against the Chargers, had some big games against the Broncos in the Super Bowl. His slant routes, because he's the one who created the rack. And he wasn't the fastest dude, but he had a quick hitch on you. You know, he do those quick hitches. Jerry be gone. Even Dion couldn't keep up with him. He could do those quick hitches. He was like one of those rare cats that all he needed was a 5 yard and be gone. You know, he made the rack. He helped young stats more so than I would even say Brady, because Brady hit him in stride, but for Steve Young it meant everything. So probably that game against New England when they were down so much and he came back and I'm talking about the regular season game. And that game against Tampa Bay, I'll never forget that Tampa Bay game. They were down, was it 35-14 or something, fourth quarter? And then he went, he went off. Um, those were the ones that kind of come out because, like, obviously when he's at his apex, games where he's not having to hand the ball off and he can just be himself and just unload. So the game against Dallas where him and Romo had that battle until Romo threw that bad pick, and Peyton was matching him and Peyton was going off. So he had a few games against New England that were memorable, but his best, his to me, Dallas game, um, and those other ones I mentioned against Cleveland. Everything starts with Cleveland, mainly early part in the '90s because they come from behind. They the 90-yard drive. That was incredible what he did with that at that time. And then of course against Atlanta in the Super Bowl against Green Bay, and then against Atlanta in the Super Bowl. Because when he finally got over the hump, you know. But those clutch games against Cleveland early on in his career, see, because that's the thing that separates him from the Aaron Rodgers. Aaron is like a 2.0 version of him, if you want to say with the arm strength. But Elway had the clutch gene. He just didn't have TD. Once he had Terrell Davis, then everything kicked into gear. And he's one of the greatest. All them guys, you know, against Frisco. Um, to me, he had that game. They, I want to say one year when they got to Super Bowl, they had to beat Frisco, and he came up big. Um, because his Super Bowl wasn't that memorable. Actually, his the Super Bowl he lost to England. I didn't think he did that much in that one against New England. I wasn't that impressed, but he looked pretty good against Denver. He had that window where he couldn't do no wrong for something. So I think that had some big Monday night games against Chicago. He had some, yeah. He came in with that Dorsey Delvin caught that one ball, was like on the ground, got back up and won. Um, he had some big games against Tampa Bay. Him and Sapp would go at it. Yeah, that one against the Raiders was the one. Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's the last time football was normal with him because after that it wasn't the same. But yeah, he had that 4 touchdown game. He was heaving that ball, and he was actually coherent. So yeah, I'll give you that. I remember that Monday Night Football game against the Raiders too. the difference between him and Big Ben is that Farr was more of a gunslinger, and he would be erratic. Uh, Big Ben, for the most part, it's just that when he got as time went on, he took all them shots, and then he started. They went against some teams that zoned him up on defense, like Jacksonville. Some teams would, kind of his cadence. But Farr was far more erratic. He was far more erratic because he tried to do that against Dallas, that mess, and they would beat him a lot. His ended up costing the team, so that's what worked against him. The drunk uncle, the drunk uncle, the fish roll. I have to think of a character. I got to pick on something like if I'm trying to think. Um, I'm trying to think how I did it if I remember trying to do it, but it's a skit because I do so many skits. He is, but the thing about it is, it's more jicky because he acts like that, but it works in his favor because if he's coherent, like he's in tune, it don't get the same results. So, but it's the things he's. Brett Favre is a lot like John Daly, the golfer. There you go. That's the best thing I can. That's the two people I can connect. Him and John Daly. And John Daly was the drunk uncle at the golf course. He was like, hit that ball. Mm. And because John Daly was like, emotions and hyped, talented dude, they reminded me of each other too. And Daly was a bad dude. Daly was actually cool. I liked him. But yeah, let me get a little something. That ain't the only thing he has besides him. He also has something he can try to squeeze on too. Because he'll say something and do something they ain't supposed to. That's the other thing too. So, bottle in his right hand, and they go hand in hand. I've been to a few of them where they had their hands full, and there's a lot of explaining to do. So I went to, this was back in the day, and this cat, he crashed the food. He sat there, we were playing badminton. I was invited. He sat there and he grabbed the dogs off. He said, sure is good. I had to punch like it sure is good. And then I'm with this brother, this cat, who he kind of reminded me of Carlton Banks type, because he wasn't the kind to be rude or hostile, nothing. He says, why would you do that? He says, we didn't invite you. And and it was the way it went down. I never forgot it because the dude that came had a lot of audacity. I was like, that bugged me out. I was like, I hadn't seen it like that. Dude just grabbed a dog, started eating it. Sure is good. Sure is good. Had some Hawaiian punch, slaw. And I'm like, tater salad. I'm like, wow. So that was an eye opener. That was an eye opener. I had never seen that before. Yeah, dude just crashed the park. We were at was that the cats, this dude and his sisters were in the backyard. So dude just beeline down the street, saw us out there eating, and just got in there and just grabbed him a plate. And we playing badminton. He grabbed the nets, wanted to start playing, and they weren't gonna be rude. You know, you might call them bougie, but they weren't gonna be rude. Dude came and crashed the party. But anyway, you better get that fish over here. You better get that cornbread. Get that cornbread over here. You got that right, cause my mother was one of them. Toya went to go see Rocky 3 with her, and she was going off from beat Mr. T up. She was screaming, and I'm like, it can't hear you on the screen, and it be talking to the screen, want to beat the screen up, be all mad. I'm like, it do it be an experience. It's true. It be true. They get certain scenes, they be getting all into it. I mean, I'm looking at it like, okay, you really think they can hear you? You really think they care about what you guys say? Because it's like that at TV. Watch TV with someone black, especially if it's a movie or comedy. Like, they be there talking to TV like, tell them, go ahead, yeah, right on, yeah. That's how it's done. See, with black folks in entertainment, it's more physical, and it's supposed to translate. You watch TV with somebody white, they be like, oh, I don't I guess to the character, like, you know you doing wrong by your mama, you know. Yep, they sure do. Cause you drop a ball or they'll talk about you like the worst thing that your moms could have ever dreamt of having. You know, I told you because that's when Magic had that game in '84, and they called him Tragic Johnson. Just dissed him, just diss folks. J.R. Smith caught some words too. Mm-hmm. Cuss them out because they lost money. That's what that's about. Did I bet all this on you? Now I'm gonna tell you something. I didn't curse it, but Mike Tyson used to be make me so mad because back in the day I used to have food parties and his fights would be on. Me and my homeboy one time, I remember he fought. Was it a British cat and not Lennox Lewis, but the other one. Anyway, it went 5 rounds, and I was like, "Oh, thank you." We just had some nice food, and he was just bad for my parties. He was bad for my parties. He knocked Busters out. Well, that wasn't the only reason why you lost. I know you were mad, but that ain't why you lost either. Your quarterback stumped that game. He was scared to throw the ball to Sherm's way, and you should have beaten him. If you get one more touchdown pass out of him, you win that game by 2 touchdowns. It was a blowout already because Russell played like he was drunk. I ain't never seen Russell that bad. He was horrible that game. So he did. I don't know if he been partying or over Golden Tate in the streets. I don't know what it was, but he stomped that game. I mean, he was brutal that game, and that wasn't like him. Wasn't like him because he was on his way to being a semi precursor to what Mahomes did. If he beats New England and them, that's 2 rings. When we having a whole different discussion. Now, was he as talented as him? No, he wasn't as talented as Mahomes, but he was a Frank Bruno was the fighter. As I remember that one went 5 rounds with Tyson, and I was like, we had some good food, and I said, please don't knock him out, Mike. Whereas when it's Evander Holyfield or Holyfield, Holmes, and Foreman, you can have dinner, 2 servings of dinner, and dessert. Them fights go, especially Holyfield fight. Holyfield fight, you'll be having midnight snacks by the time that fight's over. But Mike Tyson used to make me mad with his fights. But yeah, Russell did though. Yeah, he did. And that was he did play good against Minnesota next year. They lost that pocket, but they were never the same though. Mhm. That's why I say about football. Football is one of them sports that if you blow certain opportunities, because I'm amazed that the 49ers are back in the Super Bowl. They've been to 4 NFC Championship games. It's a wonder that they didn't just deflate. They are the best team over there, but still, the way they've lost, that can be a curse. Because look at Atlanta. You know, so you can go a long time in the NFL. Ex Dallas, long time. Well, again, my memories of him basically. Now I can say he got off in the Super Bowl against New England, which he did. But my best Reggie White was when Eagles. He had a couple of games against the Giants. Just say they had to double, triple him. He was coming. And most of my favorite of him was when he's with Philly. He did. He he had a couple great games in Green Bay and came up big. That was his pinnacle. He was a heavy load, and the way he ran, or his quickness was something too. So I mean, he got out them locks quick because he pushed that line. He was like thunder to that line. Um, I don't think they're numbered. I don't think they're numbered. I don't think they're numbered because he had to use Shannon. I think the McAfee thing is what got Stephen A. more upset. Oh, Shannon has got incredible charisma. I think I'm gonna say this in Stephen A.'s defense, and I don't take up for him, but I'm just gonna say this in his defense. You went to school for basically talk when you done this for all your career. So they would because usually jocks don't come along and they override what you do. Barkley makes it go where they get the bonus and the money, and don't get it twisted. But Barkley isn't that kind. Barkley, as much as he opened the door for Shannon Sharp's style, doesn't override Ernie. This is a different situation because Shannon Sharp with Skip Bayless somehow became a juggernaut in a different way. I think he's more because of the common man. Yeah, he did. Because Barkley didn't want to be corporate with ESPN. Barkley was a better fit with Turner. It wouldn't work with ESPN. It doesn't work with CNN. But I think where Stephen A. is probably looking at Shannon because he looks at it like this genie out of a bottle because of the way he connects on these Q&As with folks that he doesn't do. At least not in a public setting. He'll do it in private. And that's the thing that Sharp and talk about certain things that, you know. Now mind you, it's still black on black attack. And there's a part of me that thinks that Shay Shay is kind of a foo-foo, okay? Because all these black comedians and people, he ain't got no worry about with that. Ain't no worry about with that. He might be mad about it, but there ain't nothing there. She likes a different type of brother. She has to act like she's getting the way Shannon approaches women though on TV. He definitely has a way, but I don't know if it really hit that way with Joy Taylor like that though. But he definitely connects with certain women though. He definitely connects. But Stephen A. He's checking everything out. He probably looked like I gave this turkey a fish pole to ride, and he did. Because let's not be realistic. Without Stephen A. reaching out for him or having that kind of form, his streams and all that stuff don't come back to fruition. This had to work. This partnership had to work. Not his fault with him and Skip, but this had to work. So it's a it's a dicey call how things are. Yeah, she's when she don't slurp LeBron, when she ain't slurping, yeah, I like her when she talks football talk with Shady and them, and even though Ocho is annoying though. He tried to be like this deep 60 minutes, like he's some deep thoughts. No, you just not Jerry Springer. Come on, man. I do like Joy. But that's when she starts slurping like LeBron. Sometimes she gets in the slurp though. But she does know her stuff though. It all depends on which angle she's coming from though. But I think first things first is more entertaining though. Yeah, he tries to be like a mixed bag there, you know. He tries to be a mixed bag. I think first things first is more entertaining because Nick Rome be cracking me up, and then I think that Wiles and Bruce are in it. Actually, I find them three to be the most entertaining of the ones that are going. If I must say, they have interest. They have an interesting dynamic that I like. And before you ask me about Mad Dog, sometimes he acts like he be drunk. Some of his takes, because he gets back in 1956, and then sometimes he'll shock you what he said about Mahomes. But when he called Curry a nice shooter, I'm like, dude, you be tripping. I get Joe Pesci tongue in cheek with him. Well, rightfully so. He should. I mean, he stayed consistent. He stayed consistent. And everything he says about Mahomes is correct. He kept him on the top of the mountain. He is the standard. I'm not the biggest Night Wrong fan, but I can't even argue about if things about Kansas City and everything he says about Mahomes and them. I can't argue. He's 100 on that. And I'm not arguing. I am not arguing at all. Because I look at Mahomes as a special, it's a special freak of talent. He's gonna run that league. He hasn't even hit his peak in his prime. That's the scary part. So he called it. He got that right. As long as he don't talk basketball, he okay with me. Why do you call him the elephant in the room? Just curious. When you call him the elephant in the room, that means something. So I'm just curious. Yeah, well, yeah. Well, I addressed that too. I addressed that because he is deep and his skill set, you can't compare it to nobody. I had some turkey trying to say, well, he ain't past Brett Favre yet, or when he's tired, he would Aikman. I laughed. I said, really, really, really. He left them two turkeys in the slot even before he won his third ring. They're not seeing him. I don't think people understand what the depths and the magnitude of his skill set is like. Because I mean, again, there hasn't been anybody that's Aaron Rodgers for all his talents and his gifts is not this dude. He's not this dude. So yeah, he's the only one. The only one. Now it's sad for me because Warren Moon had to wait, and I remember Moon had to wait. I was in Houston at the time. I remember Doug Williams didn't get it, Randall didn't get it. Andy Reid is bad. Andy Reid got some people call him the greatest coach right now. Andy's the truth. He's at the table. I'm gonna tell you right now. Whether where you come down with him, he's at the table. He's at the table with Landry, Shula, Walsh, Belichick, Paul Brown, Lombardi. He's at that table. He can't, and he won't get. He won't remove from the table. But if he wins another one, if he three-peats, he might have the table to himself. Andy, because Jimmy Johnson had a more stacked squad. Now, obviously, Urban, Emmett, all that, he got to play together with that and that line and all that. But Andy Reid already showed you he got a runner up runner up in Philly, and he comes over with a whole different quarterback. He had McNabb. He did great with him. They just didn't win it all, but they did get to the Super Bowl. He had Trent Green with Alex Smith. Did good with them. Not great, but good. Then he gets Mahomes. He brought that in. I'm taking Andy. Jimmy Johnson didn't do much in Miami. He was average with the Dolphins. Try to bring Kareem Abdul-Jabbar running game. Try to slow down Marino. Didn't work. Great though, and I'm gonna give him his nod for college, but I got to give it to Andy. Got to give Andy his due. I got to give Andy his due. Andy's some rare company. He's past Jimmy now. I mean, he's been to more Super Bowls, and he's got three. And he knows how to keep things going, perspective. So I got to give to. It's not really close no more. I thought Jimmy Johnson was great, but I thought again, Miami, he needed that. He didn't even come close as a head coach. Yeah, you go college pro, and he's one of the greatest. But Andy passed him out. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. I got to give it to. Well, they both won a Super Bowl and both lost one. Both have runner up, whatnot. I gotta say Carroll because Seattle's drafting and what they got, they had a great run with that. And the fact with Geno Smith, I don't think Bill Cowher could take. Carroll does work wonders with what you least expect. So I have to give. It's close though. It's close. I mean, I'm not gonna take that. Pete Carroll can coach. It's just that the way he's won, but the way he's lost has hurt. I don't. Well, see, the one that comes to mind, and it's shameful because it's the only one that comes to mind. If you must know, Bill Buckner with the ball between his legs, and that's a shame too. But he's not a scrub though. He was a very good player, very good. But that's the one that comes to mind. I don't really have scrub World Series moments because you know why? Because it's usually like the plays that happened. I wouldn't call them scrub. I would say that they were unfortunate events, and they weren't even really scrub plays. It's just that things happen. There was like a broken bat, like say like a broken bat single. I remember Mesa for the Cleveland when they lost the World Series to Florida. The ball went up the middle. It's a certain little things. I can't really call it scrub because it's usually not somebody that stinks that's out there getting embarrassed. That's scrub moments that ain't supposed to be out there. They don't really get. They don't do that in baseball. He was a bum because he should have been better than he was. Mesa was. He could have been better. He could have been better. Yeah, yeah, I'll give you that. I don't usually hear that name mentioned too often, but yeah, I'll give you that. Renteria, that's a good one. No argument there. No argument there. Guys who had a chance to be great who should have been, those are bums. I don't consider scrubs in that regard. Or guys that are all right. See, if a guy's is all right or he's good, like if he got to, like that's all he got. Because it depends on the guy you mentioned. But if I see a guy that could have been great, he just kind of had that I feel like it, do it as I want. That's a bum. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. That his behavior was tacky. It was embarrassing, but he wasn't. It wasn't. But it was tacky. That's what I would say. It was. But he was a great player. He was a great player. Just an unfortunate episode with the spitting episode, but he was a great player though. But that was, he had some embarrassing moments. His behavior was just arrogance. Wouldn't call it bum behavior because he was just being as arrogant as he got. But he had a pass because he crossed over. And when I say this, when I talk about Conseco, um, I'm gonna tell you like this: you'd be better off just calling him a bum. Okay. Now the behavior was the arrogance because he generated that kind of popularity, which part baseball loved it because he was a Latin lover, crossover, and all that. But call him a bum. Call it like what it is. Call him a bum, and I'd be more happier. He should have been one of the greatest players ever. Should have been a made man because he got 400, but he underachieved. He didn't get the full zenith out of him. I know he got rings, Bash Brothers, but he was so big into his imagery. We didn't get him uncut. He should have had 500 or 600 home runs. And then along with the rings and the popularity and the crossover appeal, he could have been like the Oscar De La Hoya of baseball. Stop me if I'm lying, and please feel free to correct me. He could have been the De La Hoya of baseball, the Golden Boy, the original, the OG. Yeah, that ball hit him in his head. Remember in Texas, in the outfield, and he became like a comedian. He got embarrassing. Yeah, he got to the Yankees and he won the ring, but should have been much more with him. Should have been much more. You know, you talking about that the the strange brown stuff on his hand. He was one of those guys that I considered all right to good. Not gonna call him a bum. I mean, he had some kind of funniness about him, but I didn't think he was a great pitcher. See, I gotta think you're great before I say you could be a bum. Like I could see the upside of you being like that. Didn't really look at him like that. I thought he was better than average, but was he Steve Avery? Not Steve Avery, but uh, Tom Glavine. No, no, he wasn't in the neighborhood, or Clayton Kershaw for that matter. Utley kind of underachieved, but I don't know if he could have been great. Delgado could have been great, so I'll give you that. I don't know about Chase Utley though. But yeah, me and Conseco, yeah, he should have been an all timer because he left a lot on the table. And just think about if he comes out with the book and he was just chasing the women and the cars and the lifestyle, and then he made himself into a joke. That's the sad part because he was bad. So Vladimir Guerrero, God, yeah, He should have been better than he was. But it's not like the Conseco thing, but he should have been better. Could have been great. Because he had some moments. And he had some pop in his bat, but I'll give you that. I'll give you that. No, no. He's um he well he to me was never gonna be great. Okay, let me do one at a time. Porzingis was at best be good. He's right where he belongs in Boston as a third wheel. I know Phil got him in New York and he had some moments, but he was always a sidekick to a dude. I just don't think of him like that, so I can't call him a bum. He's at best he might be a good player one day, maybe eventually, but he's a third wheel. He's not meant to be the first wheel, so he can't be a bum in that regard. He's not really underachieving. He just doesn't have that next level to him. So at most, maybe a second side co-star, but really he's the third wheel. Draymond is not a bum. He's when you're playing that kind of character, he falls in that all right role. I'm gonna tell you why. He's not great. He does a lot of things. See, this is where it's very for people to understand. I'll tell you why he's not a bum. Is he great? Is he great? Is he a made man? Is he Rodman like? Is he Barkley like? It'll look it looks worse than it looks like never was than a bum because he's not really he looks because of the culture he's in, he looks better than what he is. But if I put him on a scrub team, he's a never was. That's what I'm getting at. He's a never was. But for Golden State, he's all right. He's the piece that works. It's like Teddy Bruschi with New England. I never looked at Bruschi as great or good, but he fits New England so well. Chad Brown came from Pittsburgh, who was a better talent and player, but Chad Brown couldn't compensate and make up for what Bruschi could do for New England. So it's about being the right piece, right place, right time. He's more lucky than he's good. Talking about Draymond. Anywhere else, his butt's riding the pine, and he's the eighth man off the bench. But in Golden State, because of what he's been able to do and get away with and flourish with, he looks like he'll dangle your mind as a third or fourth key. But to me, to be the bum is mean I saw something in him that could have been greater. He's not. He's all right. He's a fit for what they do. I don't look at him as a special player, so I don't. Being bum worthy means that I've been frustrated into some expectations. I haven't had no expectations of Draymond Green in about 7 years. Are you kidding me? He hasn't played meaningful, real basketball since 2017 or so. His mouth is meaningful, and the stuff that he does with his antics and gets away with, he fits them. I'll give you that. But if you take his individual talent and take it somewhere else, he's an eighth man off the bench. And very seriously doubt he even makes six most nights because he doesn't give you, but he fit. Clay is in the good range. Clay's in the good to very good. I think if he'd have been healthy, could have stayed upright more, should have been a great, should have been a great, but not a bum because his defense was on point. He did a lot, and he had too many big moments. But we'll never get to appreciate that. He's one of those guys. Clay will be kind of considered like a broke Scottie Pippen because he did guard the best of the defenders and he came up big, but he deferred a lot. We will never know what it could have been with Clay. but Clay was in the good. He'll be good. He'll never go below the good to really good. He won't quite get to the really good to the very good. But the really good, the good, that's where he's at. The injuries and the time took its toll, but he didn't fall to bum status. Could have been great if he's healthy. Both of them are never wases. Come on, man. Those are two never wases. Nobody cares about no snitch D'Angelo Russell. He's a never was. He scored 17, 18 points, has some moments, but he's always dangled. He's trade bait. He's dangled. Nobody care about him. Not like that. And Tobias is what was until Doc got let go. He was the fourth wheel. Never asked to do more than the third wheel. So there never was this. They keep a job because they can score, and plus they're in the day and the time where you can score 17, 18 points and have a couple out of body 25 plus games, and you fit in good with your system, and you're all right. But neither one of them turkeys can start for nobody. Who are they gonna start with? They're not that deep. Neither one of them. Them two are never was. They believe me. They was trying to get rid of D'Angelo Russell. They was trying to sell him and a pack of now leaders and some Starbursts, but nobody. Oh, he had a quadruple game, which I liked. It was back in the '90s, and then I think I liked, of course, his games against the Spurs. Every time against Dave Robinson, he came up big, and he had a couple big games against the Bulls. He had a couple games, and of course, against Shaq early on in Orlando. One of them games he got off. My Hakeem moments, I liked him in '86 a lot. He got off in a few games there. That's where he peaked in prime. And I say '86 to about '86 to about '95, somewhere in that range for me. Gary Payton, games against Utah. That's what he really, because he went against Stockton, who he considered the best player he went up against. Gary had some memorable games against Sacramento, against Minnesota. He came a big for Miami in that year. I did not care for him with the Lakers at all. He was a wrong fit for Phil Jackson's style, but he did post and everything. But he was okay in Milwaukee, but he came up good for Miami. And of course, his Seattle's where his that was his. Oh God, I gotta go back in time. Obviously with the Knicks, and in part with Washington. I remember when he came back from his injuries, he had some big games against Philly. He had some games against Boston. Um, but his best was in New York, though. I mean, he was a freak. You can't even begin to appreciate how great he was because he's one of those guys. If he played today, he would have a 70 burger probably by halftime. He was that good. He was a scoring machine. The things that worked against him was his legs got shot and he didn't have the right. He didn't run with Ewing. He didn't have the right cast. That's what worked against him. And then when he played with Washington, you know, they were just another team. So when he's with Seattle, maybe a couple games against Denver, and then I would say with OKC, he had that game against Miami when he got the MVP year. He had that big game in South Beach when he went off. He had some big games against the Spurs, and of course with Golden State, he was. I can say Brooklyn against Milwaukee. He had some big games with Brooklyn, some decent games with Phoenix. But with Golden State, I'm gonna tell you something. With Golden State, he looked like he was on another level. I have not seen him play better. Even his MVP year with OKC, with Golden State, he looked like a made man. could do no wrong with Steph. He looked his most comfortablest. He shot that ball effortlessly. Duncan's against the Nets. He rocked. He was incredible in that finals against Detroit. He came up big, but the Nets, he really was on another level. And some big games against Shaq and Kobe too. I want to say the 3 one in the playoffs. He had some big moments there. Um, he had some big ones against Dallas, against Phoenix too. Against that whole thing when Amari and Nash were running, and he had a crazy series. You know, and the big one against Phoenix when Shaq was there too. It's some big shots, big plays. It's a different. He came up. He had a couple against Miami too. My favorite Ewing games were against Chicago. Hit some big shots, big plays. But and a couple against Philly. But me and Patrick, that was an oddball situation because again, he didn't come up big a lot of times. He had some moments, but it wasn't like he was coming up big all the time. I don't have what you call a lot of favorite Ewing games, but I would say, and of course, college with Georgetown, he came up big against Houston. You know, his NBA career, there were some things that I liked, and certain. I think his Knicks era was clearly his best. I'd say from I want to say from about eight against Detroit, he had a couple of ones. I'd say from probably about 88 to about 92 because he was corny. He had that dry high top and he had a dry personality. He was big because of his talent, and plus he played in New York and he had a great college career and he was talented, but he was corny. He had no personality. I'm sorry, he didn't. Sue me. You want me to be short, simple, and brief? He was corny. Not corny in a cornball, but just corny that he was kind of dry. Like it was corny. It's like he said something, and it's like it was a stretch. There was no PR there. And you're right. If you're in New York and you got a big name and you can halfway have appeal, because Eli Manning is corny, and but he has some kind of, but it works in his favor because, well, he won, okay, and he has that kind of like slapstick humor which works. For better or for worse, it was against the Knicks, the dunk against you and that whole thing. Um, and I want to say against Portland in the '92 finals. His was always defense against when the Pacers. He got up against Mark Jackson on defense against Magic. His defensive moments, and he had a game against Charlotte where he really showcased his wear. I mean, he had some games like that. A couple plays against Utah here and there, things he would do. You know, for me, it's always with him in Chicago. The Portland thing would have been different had he came up big. He didn't, and then his Houston thing was a disaster with Barkley and Hakeem. That was just Moses Malone. Oh, it was a long time ago against the Kansas City Kings before they were Sacramento. Had a big old game against them. His 4-4-4 with Philly, he was unstoppable with him and Dr. J. As great as he was in Houston and what he did, and he put them on his back. Philadelphia that one year, he was just incredible. Moses was a beast, and he made Kareem gain some muscle too. Kareem had to put on 10 pounds of muscle. He was tearing his behind up. Carmelo against Seattle, he had a 50-piece game in the late '90s too. Um, he had some ones against Phoenix. Came up big against the Lakers before when Dale Harris was the coach, not when Phil was the coach. So my Karl Malone ones, late '80s to about the late '90s. That was his peak in his prime. Once he got his shot going, that fadeaway shot, that was in the 90s. That's 90, 95, 96. That fadeaway, that's when he became on another level. That fadeaway was sick. Wasn't for Jordan's fadeaway, Carmelone's fadeaway would have been talked about more. And I'm gonna tell you something. I don't know why more cats don't go to Carmelo and get that fadeaway. LeBron could have gone him for that fadeaway. Carl's fadeaway was the truth. Of course, he gets to the free throw line. You know, see, that's back when averaging 26, 27, 28 points meant something. Plus, he had 10 rebounds too. So, it was him and Stockton, and he, you know, again, they were one of the baddest duos ever, and probably the baddest duo that didn't win. But he, his athleticism, how he ran up and down the court, that's what LeBron gets a lot of influence from for a big guy to move. Karl Malone could move. He was quick, agile, and he just kept working on his game. He got stronger. He kept working on his game. He wasn't the most skilled cat I ever saw, but he worked on his game, and you know, black redneck, and he didn't, but he definitely wasn't like a cat that was gonna be pro black either. You didn't get the sense that he was gonna power to the people either. But cats didn't like him because he didn't really, he didn't fit the aesthetic of what a brother should fit either. He was a country brother, proud of being country. He came out today, especially when hip hop got taken over by the South and all that. He'd have been perfect. But even those cats kind of rubbed their turning nose at him because he was just too country for them. No, he spoke out. He didn't want Magic playing on the court. He mentioned that, but he didn't. Like I said, he had strange appeal. He did cross over in a way without trying, but he was like the counterculture to Jordan. That's what I would tell you. He was a counterculture to Jordan. They liked it actually. They actually liked it because he was a big old buck. They liked it, and he wasn't all shucks. He wasn't like the kind of cat that was necessarily a threat. So they actually liked it. He was the buck. He was. You know, they liked it. Yeah, he was. He flexed. Yep, they weren't scared of him. He took care of himself, and yeah, that's why he made that pass at Vanessa Bryant. Said, "Come here, cowgirl." Kobe got mad. Hmm. So, but he wasn't a problem for them in Utah. Mm-mm. He would. Most cats that had any kind of strength gonna spank Kobe. Kobe wasn't the kind of he wasn't street like that. She called him old, but she looked at the muscles when she said it. That don't mean that if a Carmelo had an S curl, had a Rodney King S curl, and he about 10, 15 years younger after what Kobe did allegedly in them streets, that don't mean he couldn't have gotten through. I'm just saying. Just saying. Because you remember when Rodney King had that S curl and he said, can't we all just get along? Put that on Carl Malone with an S curl, and he about 10 years younger. especially what Kobe got himself into. Might have been a different ball game. Just saying. Because she had her I can do what I want to do moment if she wanted it. But see, she was a puppy then. So, but had that have happened with what transpired in Colorado in that role, you never know. He didn't just go say stuff to her by accident either, because he knew. He knew. It was a tacky turkey move, but she called him old, but that didn't mean that she didn't, wasn't checking out stuff. And I ain't trying to get into all that. I'm just saying. Now, what Kobe was alive, and I don't know about now, and I would hope he wouldn't. I don't think he would, unless she initiated it, because she got some street in her. And believe me, after messing with Kobe and all that stuff that went on with their situation, she would a cat would more than know if he had the green light, because she's got an edge to her that you know. But I don't think Fish did though. Not alive. I don't think he's making that move now, and especially without her not giving the nod. And if she does anything, she's gonna keep that on the low. So friends, social situation for comfort, but I don't think it was. I don't. I wouldn't put a lot into it. Besides, you know, people would assume that he would make do something like that. But again, he'd be on his P's and Q's though, and she doesn't lead nothing on. She's not. She doesn't really put a lot of stuff out there. You know. But I couldn't be mad at her because Kobe did a lot of dirt too. So if she had been for the, she had been for the streets, she definitely owed him one or two or three. I'm just saying. That ain't no hyperbole. That's a fact. They had a lot to work to do what they did, without getting on the business. But it was pretty much public consumption that they broke up a couple of times. So, and a lot of stuff went down. So, but I'm not gonna make a real big deal in that. She spent time with Paul Gasol too, who was a married man, all that. So, yeah, I heard about that. Except I think D Fish as a coaching has got. I ain't heard nothing about him coaching now, but Matt Barnes, I saw that whole episode with that score and all that crap. That was embarrassing. So don't really keep up with these fish like that. None of that, you know. I hear things and I see Matt Barnes, him and Steven Jackson. You know, some of these cats I don't really put a lot of watching their stuff because they still out here trill hollering in these streets like they still trying to get some, you know, they still doing clicks and views and some popularity. I'm not really. They got a lot of, you know, that stuff. Say that for Shay Shay Show. I mean, if there was like that sports related show where you could go to the dumpster and air stuff out, it's coming. Oh yeah, with the Lakers, yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. With the Lakers, yeah. Anywhere else he sucked. Anywhere else he was a scrub. But with the except for OKC, I'll give you that. He did pretty. He was okay with OKC, but everywhere else he sucked. But with the Lakers, oh yeah, he was yeah one of the most underrated ever as far as what they meant for what they did. He was balanced. Only if you got a superstar and a coach who knows how to, you know, can juggle it. There's too many caveats. Yeah, he could fit the nightlife, but I don't know if he could because Pat Riley be doing roll call. Pat Riley used to screw them streets because Shaq talked about how Riley had his crew out be watching you. Only if he could. Only if he they got a top tier. They got to have top talent though. Fish ain't much without top talent. I remember when you played with Shaq and Kobe and that and Phil Jackson. That's structure. You gotta have, you know, he wasn't even Fisher Price. He was just he was just fishing. Like I said before, he stunk. He was in Utah and Jerry Sloan had him on the ninth on the deck. He was next to the Gatorade cat. Wasn't seeing her, you know. He just didn't do nothing. So, but when he came to the Lakers, especially when Phil was there, you know, see Fisher Price did get to a Super Bowl as a runner up. Derek Fisher was not. Well, first of all, he was a second, third tierish tweener guard. One thing, and he wasn't seeing none of the best of the second crew. So his defense, his hustle, his scoring, he fit good with what Phil ran because Phil didn't want a pure point guard. That's why Gary Payton didn't work. Fish was a great fit. Shot the three a bit much at the time, whereas today he'd be perfect. At that time, he shot that ball bit, knew how to pass the ball in, played his role, played good defense, could go to the hole, hit some big shots. But I don't know if he could have made it in Miami though. So that's how I looked at him. I have respect for him what he did with the Lakers and all that. Because he Derek Fisher to the Lakers is like Draymond Green to Golden State. Thank you. Glad you mentioned it. Without that kind of component in that situation, I don't even know if the guy makes it in the league 4 years. So he gonna be riding the pine, three of them. but in that situation, he fit. And that's what I meant. And Fish was what I call I. He was I. He wasn't a bum, but he was I. He could have some good moments, do enough to this. But he was doing multitasking, which fit. But he was never gonna be great or a made dude. He fit the parts. He was a part. So he was their first big superstar. Finals. That it's gonna be remembered, win or lose. And he was a very effective player there. Yeah, he was a precursor to Giannis. That's where Shaq was like, Giannis did. So Giannis shoots a little bit more with the three ball and outside. But the one drop dunk on him. That's all. Penny got hurt, and Jerry West was a great salesman too. So so I was glad for him. He deserves it. He's one of a handful of players to have multiple. He deserves it. You know how they actually had guy. Okay, y'all glad to see NBA role plays for favorite. He did, but I remember you got to remember something too. That finals against Houston is 30 years ago, so he's not gonna look like he was 25 forever. Probably went through a lot. He did go through a lot growing up in Chicago. A lot of situations. Oh, there's a lot of role players I like. I mean, you know, BJ Armstrong comes to mind. A lot of the guys that were on team, they were big parts, integral. Um, in the '90s, you were asking me. Um, hmm. Believe it or not, Dilla Shrimp was a role player. There's a lot of guys that were role players in the '90s. That's just there's a lot of guys I can think of. I'm just thinking off the top. There's just so many because it was a different era. It's so different. There are no role players today. Everybody in there, everybody got to shoot three ball. Everybody got to play the same. Even the scrubs, everybody got to shoot the same. Back then, there were real role players. Guys like Charles Oakley was a role player. Um, um, James Edwards was a role player. It's different today. Different today. Yeah, well, Penny, Penny's coaching. I mean, Penny's, it's just one of those wonder what ifs. So, um, Mario Ellie, Sam Cassell, those were role players for Houston. They came up big. You see, now when you talking about that, because my idea of role players back in the '90s were championship guys. Sean Elliott came up big, role player. Avery Johnson, big championship player. So he wasn't a bum. He he did good for what he was. He did good for what he was because he was never going to be great, but he hit some big shots. I like Sam. He should have had a head coaching job by now too. Something wrong. So something's off because he should have had a whole head coaching job. But he was good for what he did. I mean, he was all right. He falls in my all right class. You know, hit some big shots. He was smart in Boston. He helped him with that chip. Actually, in '08, he had some big plays. You gotta remember like him, Kenny Smith, Mary Ellie, Robert Ory. Those were role players. Those were role players. I mentioned Ori. Cassell falls in that line. Mary Ellie did too. Wherever they go, they win. They were role players. Kerr was. Different day and time when you mention that. I'm funny you mentioned the '90s because that meant all that then. You didn't have these guys that were interspersed with starters like it is today. No, he was good. He was good. I think he just fall in the good category. I never looked at him as great, but I'd say good, not a bum. He was good. He was good. I didn't have no expectation of him being better than he was. I remember when he was with the Paul, but I didn't have no expectation he was gonna be great. So yeah, I like the choir. Paris was great. Great. He was instrumental. Larry Bird will tell you that he was they called him the chief for a reason. He was great. Great player. Can't argue against Parrish. He came up big for Boston. He just didn't have no personality. He was dry and he had that old man get off my lawn and get a switch and go upside your behind. But Can't argue about his career. He was great in Boston. He came up big. I don't consider Cat a bum. I just think he's soft in the head. That's all. I mean, because I don't think he can be great. Um, he's athletic. Like he's like Anthony Davis with Arrested Development. If he put his mind to it, he could be really good. Do I think he could be great? No. Anthony Edwards can be great. Cat can stat pad, but I don't see anything special. How? How? He been around how long? He score a lot of points, but they don't mean nothing. See, to be considered great, you got to actually will your team where people see something from you. Jimmy Butler called him soft. Tibbs thought he was soft. He doesn't show me anything that makes his game great. Barkley right now doesn't buy Minnesota at the top only because of Anthony Edwards. They don't trust him and they don't trust Gobert. So he's soft. To be a bum, I got to see you could be great. His stat wise, he has some moments, but I don't. He don't move me. He don't move me. He's a stat pattern. I just don't see the greatness there. I see a guy who can be good if he gets himself buckled down and don't clown, and plays within the system. But see, he's not a leader. Anthony Edwards is the one. Gobert's not a leader. If they get behind him, he does have that halftime if I feel like it. And in the postseason, he looks great. Regular season, he's a lot to take. So I can't argue with you on that. I want to. I want to. I can't. Postseason Jimmy though is almost is he's got that Kyle Shanahan thing going, except it works in his favor for the most part. Because in the postseason, he goes another level. And then you remember why you tolerate his attitude and his antics. I just don't think he's good enough to be a turn on, turn it off guy though. He don't no. But Duncan is not Tyler Hero. No, he had a moment all right for against the in that bubble. He didn't do nothing. He got hurt last year, but he didn't really show me much. Duncan Robinson showed me more in the finals. Hero was hurt, and then Duncan is great. Duncan's like a made man. I like Hero in spurts, but I don't trust him yet because too much time you think he plays hero ball. I have to see him do more. So I'm a centerfold spread, so I'm a little bit funny with him. Well, they got scary Terry Rozier, so that but you gotta remember something. Lowry came up big, but Lowry was old when we got him. They got Kyle Lowry about 5 years past the pull date. Had they got him right when he was with Toronto, but they got him 2 years too late, and that's why Terry Rozier was more of a pick. Lowry's legs are shot. But what a guy that what we call an overachiever, but he just didn't have the wheels no more for what Miami needed. That's the problem. You know he wanted to keep Lowry because let me tell you something. They be auditioning Hero off. Hero, they just keep waiting. Well, anything's a bounce back because he's at the stage in his career. You know, I mean, he pretty much been playing like a bench cat, but if they get some juice out of him, they get something out of him. I just don't, it's not gonna be like he was 10 years ago. No, he fell off a lot when LeBron left and Kyrie left, and he had to take the load, and it wasn't the same. He can still have some productive nights. He put up 19. I remember I saw he had some moments, and he still can pass that rock. But can he go off and do that 25 and 10 like he did in Minnesota? No, that guy's long gone. If that guy could come back, then the Heat would be a real problem. If he was a 20 and 10 man right now, the Heat would be a problem. But what they're getting out of him, you know, he's better than serviceable. I hope not, because then that makes that trade look even worse. You know, and I like Scary Terry. He's the energy bar what they need. They still don't have quite what they need, but they got pieces that are playing hard. And if they can scrap it and hold it together, you know, that's what they're trying to do. All they want to do is be fifth or sixth seed. That's all they're trying to do. Just don't get the play-in tournament and get in, and that's where they do their danger. The problem with them is that their mindset is like we're gonna scrape by and then we'll turn it on. But one of these years they're gonna get knocked out in the first or second round. Because I just, okay, well, that trade didn't really mean much then if he's gone. So yeah, so good pickup though. I'm sure they'll look for some. Yes, yeah. I'm sure they'll look for somebody else to come along. Nobody wants him. Nobody wants him. He ain't really that hurt. They just don't. They don't. They got him for reasons because he showed some moments for Miami, but he don't really fit LA. He's quick and he can get a lot of shots off, but he don't really fit. I like him in certain rotations, but he didn't do nothing in the finals. He stunk it up. He pretty much, you know, yeah, and he plays like Schmear too. Kind of make you think of when he was in that Tyler Perry movie with the braids. I will say this for Gabe Vincent though, he will be wanted out west. The best spot for him would be Denver. You better hope they don't be watching this live stream. That's where he would be a good fit. I'm gonna do it. Hold up. See some. I don't know if I did or not. Let's see. Jordan Peele. I put the wrong name. I put Poole. No, they don't do that. They don't like me. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's just that I don't, me and them got a strange. didn't want, no, they don't, because I don't talk that crap. And see, they always watching what I say too. Doesn't want white dudes in his movie, but there was something else he said. Let's see. Yo, he got Jordan Peele, got Liam Nielsen. Oh yeah, that's what it was. So Jordan Peele had this thing with Liam Nielsen, and Liam Nielsen made some kind of racial remarks. That's what it was. That's what it was. So first, he didn't want any white actors or people in this thing, and then this thing with Liam Nielsen. That's what it was. Yeah, probably so. Probably so. I gotta go get me something to eat though, cause I'm probably because it's been my time to get a grub on. But I appreciate that though. No, the thing is that yeah, they don't. Yeah, it came up on sometime it does. Um, I appreciate everything with everything. It's just that, like I said, they, YouTube got their agenda, and sometimes they want you to, have my issues with them. I do this for the love. Ain't no dime, and they commercial. Sometimes they did if they want to. I don't even trip on that, but they have definitely been tripping where I'm concerned. That's an understatement, you know. But yeah, if you don't talk about what they want to talk about, I don't do that. I let it be blown how I feel about stuff, so I don't care. I've had my issues with them. I don't care. So I'm just glad we get together, we talk, we chop it up, we do what we do, and that's what's up. The numbers don't lie. So they don't want no one to. They don't want you to speak your truth. They don't. Hmm. Especially when they got these plants around, because they got more celebrity and more entertainers in here now, peeping stuff. But see, I'm not going to be bad mouthing black folk per se unless something comes out. I'm not doing a Shannon Sharp thing. I respect his success, but I see how dangerous that is. That's why I don't condone the cat. And I see Willie D. I watched Willie D. He had that comedian on who made that remark about George Floyd. I don't want none of that because people are trying to catch people in this thing. I just want to keep it, you know, generalized. But they do their thing. Everybody's got room to make the bag. Everyone's got room to say what they say. So that's how I look at it. So I'm gonna keep it like that. Anyway, I'm gonna call it a night. Glad everybody came through. Peace the best. Appreciate you. Appreciate the support. Stay warm, stay safe, like I always say. Stay healthy, stay well. We will do this again. All right, I'm out. Peace and the best. Thank you all. Always. Right on.